Are we going to see enforcement from a body like the ABA in the future if a firm really screws up and drops the ball?
I mean,
without
question,
out of the club.
not the ABA, but the Federal Trade Commission has jurisdiction,
Sure.
And certainly they've brought scores of enforcement actions now, and there may well be an enforcement action initiated against a law firm. There's no reason why law firms are exempt from that.
Yeah, these ones we're hearing about are certainly no more, the ones that law firms, at least what you perceive is what they may have done wrong, is certainly no better, worse, different than Wyndham or anybody else.
Yeah.
It's not some unique set of special mess up that happened in the law firm.
One difference actually is that it may not be personal information at issue. And so the Federal Trade Commission is all about protecting the consumer, protecting individuals.
It's not trade secrets and not
exactly.
all the other things.
If it's R&D, if it's financial information, it's not
so
as
who might
susceptible.
enforce that if you lose that?
For law firms, that's
clients.
the state attorneys general, possibly. Yeah, the multi-state task force might step into the void.
Well, we also, let's not be uniquely U.S. about this, right? Every firm is multinational. Every client is now multinational. The ones that are paying the big bills for the big, let's talk big law, and there are lots of regulators out there that see this as an opportunity.
Make a name for themselves?
Well, I think that probably is a little more cynical than I was going to go, but it's perhaps help educate people about a better approach.
Yeah.
And if they have to use someone as an example, I still think the interesting thing about law firms is what's holding them together and what allows. So if you had one of these major things where the FTC is investigating you and clients are leaving you, the partners are going to start leaving pretty quickly.
We
and
are
right.
our own widgets.
Right, and so suddenly what's holding it together falls apart. So just in investing in making a return on your investment in all of these partners that you brought up through and the associates that you're training, there's another motivation for senior management. And then.
So is it self-correcting? I mean, is that what you're saying?
I think clients will say, it's just going to take a couple of these for everyone to say, now we understand we need to do it. And you had two huge name law firms who are having to go out and tell their clients we were affected. And then here's the other thing, is the ability of a law firm to speak as a human to its clients as opposed to a lawyer about their own mistake. So I am a law firm, I have screwed up. And my training and everything I know about myself as a lawyer is to qualify and to be careful and to be specific but be careful not to give away too much information because I know litigation is hanging out there. And that's the worst possible relationship to have with your client in a bad time. If they think that you're lawyering up in the way you're talking, you've made the trust deficit even that much more. And it's a hard thing because you're going against 30 years of training for lawyers. Mm-hmm. I need you to speak honestly to me about what happened, what I need to do to protect my company, who I placed in your hands.
This is why law firms, just like every other business, needs external consultants who know this. This is art, it's not science.
Yep.
And there is a routine of how to manage your reputational risk and your harm, and part of it is speak in the right voice to the affected individual or business.
I think law firms probably don't understand that responding to a breach is a full-time business. So if you have a host of clients and you're in charge of responding, you know this because you're helping these companies, you lose your day job. And you also lose your night job at that point because you are responding full-time and you're just dealing with the incoming. And knowing if you're on the management team of a law firm and you have an active set of clients that you're not going to be able to deal with those clients' problems and thinking through that process. If I were a partner in a law firm, I would want to be thinking about these things and raising this and having some of my very smart partners think through how do we want to deal with this.
Mark, that sounds fantastically expensive.
There's a reason, right? You have a lot of value. If I'm a bad guy, it doesn't cost me a lot to try to get that value out of you or try to access that value or try to just see what's there. It's not expensive for me to do that. What's the downside for you of a law firm if you lose it?
But at what point does this start to fundamentally alter the cost structure of running a global law firm at scale? Before the previous panel, we had people running large law firms, and we asked them that question, and there's not an easy answer.
There has to be a balance. The Federal Trade Commission expects reasonable security. Now that is a moving target over time. What was reasonable 10 years ago is absolutely
or
not
last
reasonable
week
today or last week. So we all have to keep our eye on that ball. But I don't think that anybody is going to expect extraordinary measures. And the fact is, if somebody wants to get into your system, they will get in. The trick is to just stay ahead of the next guy and to be a little bit more secure than the next guy, because the cyber criminals, the intruders, are going to look for the lowest hanging fruit.
It goes to one of the fundamental things you do for data security is it's a risk analysis, and your risks have changed. So, and the biggest one being that your clients walk out the door. And as you said, then maybe that's the end of a firm. I don't see that quite happening, but who knows?
Law firms are now starting to buy cyber insurance in droves. Yep. So we are insuring against this risk the way we insure against all risks.
Which is a really good idea. One of the things that you had mentioned earlier was how long has this penetration been going on before this has been discovered? Is, that was a prior act, so your insurance doesn't cover that. So there's some real risk in, like, you got to really think about how you're going to. There isn't a set policy for cybersecurity insurance, as you know.
Yeah.
And so coming up with what works for your firm, you really got to know what do I have. The first thing you got to do is all that basic stuff. What do I even have?
Yeah.
Do I have R&D? Do I?
Where are the crown jewels?
Hell, we do.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And that's a huge task. That's costly too.
Sure.
I would say that all those costs, though, were manageable, especially in this. You're not going to see a massive shift. In the financial sector, I've seen financial penalties from, SEC or FINRA regulated organizations where the penalty that was assessed on a financial institution was greater than what most cyber consultants would have charged to have conducted some penetration testing to come and give a comprehensive kind of cybersecurity solution and help train and educate the client company on how to prevent those things. And we've had some experience with insurance companies coming and saying, hey, we have a client, we're thinking of writing this claim. Can you assess what they've done and tell us if they've been compromised or not? And obviously the client company thinks, oh, everything is fine, nothing has happened to us. We should get a great seal of approval. And there are lots of tools that are out there that are very sophisticated that can find things if you find the right tool set or the right company of people, of consultants who have special or certain types of experience.
We all understand, all the statistics tell us that 90-some% of cyber intrusions could have been prevented with basic patching.
Yeah.
Basic segmentation, basic access controls. So law firms just need to take the lessons that other businesses have taken, other industries have taken over the last year or two and implement them.
The other place where that kind of finding out what's there is important is in the M&A environment, where you've got to do your due diligence. And so even if it's not being done for other reasons, you probably ought to be thinking about that all the time. There's lots of reasons. There's lots of good reasons to do this. And you're right, it ultimately certainly costs less than losing the firm.
Companies that work with law firms need to understand that their environments could be fortress-like, but if they're bridges down to vendors that have authorized access to their systems or who hold their data, those law firms, like all vendors, are potentially vulnerable. And so the companies that work with law firms need to impose restrictions and required safeguards on law firms to ensure that their data is maintained in